video features spoilers for both Castlevania Lords of Shadows and Castlevania Lords of Shadows Mirrors of Fate. This is a direct sequel to both of those games, so story moments for those games have to be mentioned, so there's a spoiler warning. Remember, spoiler warnings are a courtesy, not a mandate. Alright, let's go in. Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2 is a direct follow to Castlevania Lords of Shadow 1, although it does recap the events of Lords of Shadow Mirror of Fate for people who didn't play it. And need to follow the cliffhanger ending of Lords of Shadow 1, it has a lot of things need to fulfill, especially after Lords of Shadow 1 had that DLC that tried to explain things in between, but instead just kind of made things more into a mess. So the main premise is that Gabriel Belmont, now as Dracula, must work with Zolbeck in order to stop Satan from returning to the Earth. You really think he'd try that again? The first thing got ass kicked by a regular human. But that's the main premise, with Zolbeck promising Gabriel that if he fulfills his task, then he will give him the one thing he wants, which is to finally rest in peace and die. So that's Gabriel's motivation in order to stop the Acolytes from bringing Satan back to the Earth. One thing that I mentioned right now is that it is cool how they want to go for a modern day setting with the whole entire city, or the fact they called it Castlevania City is really creative. But my main thing with this whole entire city, whole entire locale, it feels like it's underutilized. Despite being a Castlevania game set in modern day, they don't really do much with it. They do more with it, like compared to like Aria Sorrow and Donna Sorrow, which did jack all with their 2030s freaking time setting. But here it's like, I expected Dracula to be interacting with people in the street, stuff like that, but no, everyone's already evacuated by the time the player really gets a start in the game, and you're mostly going to stuff like factories, labs, and warehouses, and not really doing much with the city itself. Like, you have an entirely new setting for a Castlevania game, and you don't want to take advantage of it in the slightest. Things just feel very samey. Like, yes, I know everything has to take place at night because you're Dracula, so someone will kill you, but there's so many things they could do for a nighttime city, and yet they instead choose the most boring and dull locations of a city to pick with for locales, which it's just super lame. Like, this is a brand new setting you could do for a Castlevania game. At that point, why even have the game set in modern day? You're just not going to do much with it. It just feels so weird. The other half of this game takes place in Dracula's castle, which I do like the idea that the monsters and stuff within Dracula's castle are trying to stop him from leaving, because if he ever leaves or dies, then they end up dying, going away too. So I do like the whole aspect that the creatures of the night are rebelling against Gabriel, and they're trying everything to stop him, on top of Gabriel also trying to take out the Satan's acolytes as well. So this whole entire thing where literally everything is against the super hard aspect, on top of the fact that you're working with a freaking enemy from the first game. Like, so many things are against Gabriel. I do like the whole entire aspect of it, and the castle segments are way better, with it just being more fun to traverse, more fun to go through, more interesting stuff than compared to the city. It just feels samey and uninteresting. Another big narrative grab I have with this game is the fact that from early on, they highlight the point that Satan is afraid of Gabriel and only trying to conquer the Earth and come back once he thought Gabriel is gone. So the fact that your main opponent is someone that's terrified of you can feel underwhelming, since it feels like basically you know you're gonna win at that point, especially since you know you'd be seeing the first game. But it's just like a one-time weird aspect. I also know it's kind of the point that Satan's game is more of a coward kind of thing. It's too afraid to actually go against Gabriel, hence the idea of needing to wait until Dracula is gone before his acolytes try and bring him back. And I just know this divisive point that just feels kind of lame, the idea that your main villain, your main big bad, is afraid of the protagonist, and just kind of sets up kind of weird dynamic. Now for the gameplay, which has seen so much improvement. Combat feels way smoother to do. Your light and shadow magic are now completely different weapons, the Void Sword and Chaos Claws respectively, so their own entire combos and systems. It's super smooth, it just feels way better to do. Although the sub-weapon stuff you kind of have aren't really as useful compared to the first game, but they also give you like so many different items you can carry to heal yourself, which does feel very overboard, especially in this game where you can basically heal off every enemy that's basically stunned. So it feels weird to give you also healing items on top of that. But combat just feels way better. I do still wish that the momentary camera shake and everything from the freaking parries weren't there, but combat just feels way better to do in this game. Combat feels way better to do. It just feels way better. And climbing is so much smoother. It's way more naturally flowing, as opposed to the first game where Gabriel to constantly stop and pause and doing things. It's just way better to just climb around and do things that are just super cool and amazing. It just feels great to play. Although some of the weird decisions in this game include the fact that, just like the first game, the first few levels do a poor job at actually representing how the game actually plays, with throwing out these big, more bombastic things or different scenarios for the sake of just trying to be more impressive, experimental. It can try to be experimental, but you gotta try to experiment, probably do more with it, and just not much better at all. So the first few hours, once again, don't do a good job at actually highlighting the game's strong suit, really. So that's kind of the problem with the first game, but it's not as bad as the first game where it felt like it's trying to be more show-off in fucking presentation. Here it's just kind of switched things up too much a bit. And for the thing I know someone's waiting for me to mention, the massively, overly despised stealth sections in this game, which, they're fine, they're not anything bad, they're short, they're easy to do, like, it's not anything awful or anything. I've understood this big hate for them. Like, you're barely doing it for like the majority of the game's runtime or anything. Like, there's just small little stealth sections are just more like little puzzle sections. And yeah, it is weird how these enemies are the most powerful thing in the entire game because they can just obliterate Gabriel, and are pretty much the only thing in the game that can obliterate Gabriel like this. But there are the fact that after circumstances, you can kill them yourself, what makes it weird that they're the biggest threat, considering Gabriel does have the ability to fight back and kill them, but the game just then spawns more if you do that. So it's a weird aspect of it, but yeah, stealth segments, weird idea, but I don't know, do people think like Order of Ecclesia from these stealth segments in this game? No, people just say Order of Ecclesia is a great game, or whatever, but disagree it's not a great game, but freaking people over-exaggerate the stealth section in this game. They're not that bad, it is fine, just chill, they're short, you get to them easily, they're not difficult or anything, they're not mind-bogglingly annoying, it's fine. Which my gripes earlier with the city setting not being used to its full advantage, but I also expected more human enemies. Like, you do fight like riot police and stuff like that, but I don't know, again, I expected more of humans who feared almighty Dracula would rise up against him on top of Satan's demons acolytes trying to go after Dracula. But once again, there's mostly demons you fight. You do fight some of the Brotherhood of Light when you're in Dracula's castle, so there's still some of that whole entire thing going on. Once again, I expected more of modern day humanity going up against this Dark Lord, considering y'all built an entire city around this freaking castle like dicks. Puzzles are a really weird mixed bag in this game. There's no giant, grandiose puzzles like in Lords of Shadow 1 or Mirrors of Fate, where it's one entire, hey, you can get a solution, we go forego the EXP reward for doing the puzzle kind of thing. No, they're generally more stuff that generally tells you what to do, like, oh, use the Void Sword for this, use the Chaos Claws for this kind of thing. Like, there are still puzzles, and there's still one that just gives like a reward, you just figure things out pretty well, but it's just not as majorly a factor compared to the first game kind of thing. So puzzles still here would seem more simplified and want to keep things more flowing. It's also this very weird decision in this game where it's got a big map you can go through, even with fast travel points, which for fast travel has been a menu right there, fast travel points specifically would be better to use. But there's also the fact that this is both for the city and Dracula's castle, and there is a shop you can go to in Dracula's castle, but it's the idea that in order to go to it, I have to fast travel, go to here, find a way back to Dracula's castle, fast travel to a point where the shop is at, just to use it. It feels not worth it at all. Like, the shop just feels like it just wasn't fully thought out. There's a lot of things in this game that just feel half-baked. City locale feels half-baked. Parts of the story feel half-baked. The story works, but there's stuff like to introduce characters that have so much potential in this kind of setting for a Castlevania game, and the character doesn't amount to much or do much of anything. It just feels weird how there's just cool ideas they could do with how different they're going with this, but then just don't really do much with it. Now, this game did get DLC in the case of the Revelations DLC, where it's a prequel DLC that plays Alucard, and you should definitely play this DLC after beating the game, because this thing spoils parts of the main game. But as for this whole entire DLC, it's kind of good, but it's not anything major. Like, sure, you get to play as Alucard, but Alucard's combat is not great at all, especially compared to Gabriel. Like, it feels more stealthy and awkward as combat. Well, Gabriel gets the Void Sword and the Chaos Claws. Alucard just gets the way Light and Shadow Magic worked in the first game, where it's just a passive buff kind of thing, which feels lame. And although I will say, one praise is that Alucard's gameplay is way more puzzle focused. A lot of the big, more intricate puzzle stuff is more saved for this one entire section, which is a very cool way to do it. And there's also this one section with Alucard's final boss for his DLC that actually makes me wish the game did more with the sub abilities, because you actually use it as part of the boss fight, and that is super cool kind of thing you can do, and that is super amazing. I just wish they did more with that in the main game. But yeah, DLC is good, but not really anything that needs to be seen, considering the fact that you pretty much know what's going to happen through it. It's just more for a novelty of playing as Alucard, who just doesn't feel as fleshed out as compared to Gabriel himself. Also, a pet peeve I have with this game, which is more so because the technology is being made on, is just how often the game needs to have doors fully closed before it loads the next area. Like, you need to just activate a bunch of switches. Rather than just open the next door and you going, it needs to fully close the door behind you, obviously to despawn everything behind you, and then you can go open the next door. But it gets weird where it even sometimes requires you to do tiny little mini games again just to open the door again. It's like, just let me go through. Like, I know why you're doing it technological wise in order to despawn the stuff behind me. It just feels weird how it just needs to constantly stop, close doors, make sure it's fully closed, and you gotta go through it and then go to the next area. It just feels weird, especially when you try to backtrack and look around for stuff. It just feels weird like that. Also, the fact that you have a menu that, like a map screen that highlights, oh, which objective you want to focus on, which is still gonna be like side quests and stuff. What are side stuff you can do? It's not a side quest system at all. So it makes weird to be like, this is the main objective thing, and then be like, which do you want marked? It's like, well, Mark, there's no other option. What do you do in this area? Yeah, there's stuff to find, but not exactly marking it on a map or anything. So it feels weird to have it organized like that. Those are just like little pet peeves when it comes to Lords of Shadow 2. Overall, I like Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2. It's just like the combat style is way better, the exploration is better, although which of the locales, which is more interesting. So that's castle segments are real good. Alucard's DLC has good puzzle system and everything going on there, and the stealth sections that people highlight being awful are really over exaggerating in terms of how they are. They're fine, they're passable, not anything abysmal. I get it, the idea of stealth in a Castlevania game is weird. Once again, Order Reclesia got a pass for having stealth segments in its game, and I don't see anyone go throwing a riot about Order Reclesia is back on the awful stealth segments that run everything. No one goes like that. So it's kind of one of those things that just like people over exaggerate. And I agree with the producer who made the comment about how some outlets overly mention the stealth segments. It's like, bro, they're barely part of the game. It's fine. It's okay. So overall, just comment way better. Boss fight super cool. Oh, the final boss is, depending on how you look at it, it could be lame. Like, I know some people really like the idea, but, you know, video game thing, so you gotta do video game stuff, and you can fill out the video game part, then I don't care what the narrative idea you're going for is, we need to be a game first. So, boss fight just kind of, final boss fight just kind of lame in a one-star aspect. By the way, for this was a good send-off with Shadow 2. I know people are divisive on the ending, but the ending works just fine. I don't really understand the hate for it. But Shadow 2 is good. Once again, I don't understand why this game is so hated, along with the other Lords of Shadow games. I just played this whole trilogy, and they're all good. I don't get it. Especially this game that improves combat. People say the combat in this game got worse. It's like, worse. It's way more smooth to do. Boss fights have better telegraphed everything. You have way more options you can do in combat. Like, what do you mean? Just stuff like that. Either way, let's shout to. We're good. So over the course of making these videos, I got a lot of comments on the Shadow 1 video that highlighted specifically why people weren't big on Lords of Shadow 1. It wasn't necessarily because of the quality of the game, so for some people it was, just didn't really like the game, but it's also the fact of what it represented. That through the comments on the Shadow 1 video, I actually learned that there was a scrapped Alucard game for the PS3 360, which, yeah, if you expected something like that to come out, and then instead you got a reboot that just abandoned all the lore and continuity from the previous games, yeah, I can definitely see why that would piss you off and just turn you off on the idea of Lords of Shadow. On top of the fact that abandonment of continuity, also meant no Julius Belmont game, which All Your Sorrow kept hinting at the idea of making a Julius Belmont game, but random continuity means that, like, so it's up from me, because I'm a more recent Castlevania fan, I'm in the perspective that nowadays I'm gonna do Jack-O Castlevania, it feels like it pretty much do whichever direction, but at the time, probably felt like truly felt like Castlevania was gonna only go in direction Lords of Shadow, like nothing else would be done afterwards. Like when people thought for DLC Devil May Cry, oh, we're gonna do the reboot games and then we're gonna go back to the original continuity of Devil May Cry. I'm gonna do both. But nowadays, with so many crossovers of Castlevania, we're being Dead by Daylight, Vampire Survivors, freaking Dead Cells, and all the crossovers generally highlight the original continuity and everything. Like, despite Lords of Shadow being a massive success financial-wise, they just don't get the attention. They don't have the same level of impact, fan love, whatever you want to say, with the fan base. So it's like, oh, Dead Cells, the crossover with Symphony that night, and Rondo of Blood. Oh, Vampire Survivors, granted, was like everything Castlevania, but specifically highlighting the more classic OG continuity. Oh, Dead by Daylight, here's freaking skins and characters from all over Castlevania, but none are from Lords of Shadow. None are from that one, despite how big it was. So, for the idea that people think Castlevania, they think of the OG continuity. Granted, to Castlevania, they just think of Symphony of the Night, which is also like the second best-selling entry from what I've seen. So the fact that Konami would go like, hey, we're gonna do a new entry for Alucard, and then just scrap it, instead you get Gabriel Belmont's whole entire journey. Yeah, I can see just from premise-wise, people wouldn't be on board with it. It's gonna do with the quality. It's like how for me, I love Mega Man Legends. I want Mega Man Legends 3. But that's like Capcom makes like, oh, here's Mega Man 9, 10, 11. It's like, can we do anything but classic Mega Man? And it's like, probably for people, that's how they feel. Like for classic Mega Man fans, they'll love that classic Mega Man. But for me, I'm like, Legends 3 though. When? Where? How? Come on. So it probably feels like that. And sort of my mindset being more recent, thinking at this point, it's coming to do anything, they could go anywhere with the franchise. But at the time, probably people probably thought the fact of, oh, the Castlevania they know and love is now gone for this reboot that either they may not mesh with, or they could mesh with, but it's not what they're looking for, kind of thing. So that basically puts a whole lot of things in perspective on why people treat Lords of Shadow the way they do. For all this in hindsight, I really should have understood, considering the fact that the whole entire thing with the Bloodstained Ritual Night Kickstarter and what it represented, on top of the freaking metaphorically torturing Konami because of all the wrongdoings they've done to Castlevania fans, and I backed that Kickstarter. I own Bloodstained Ritual Night. I own a special backer copy of that game for the Switch, so I should have really understood just how much a shift in direction would have really affected the fan base, especially when considering what the fan base would have wanted, or the fact that Iga just refuses to elaborate what happened with Julius Belmont because of the fact that, hypothetically, he wants the freedom of a writer comes later to pen that story. So it's one of those things that I really should have understood that whole entire aspect, but yeah, that puts a lot of perspective of why Lords of Shadow gets reputation it does. But not necessarily to do with the quality, but more what it stood for in terms of where the franchise was going and where it may not go anywhere else at that point. Considering Lords of Shadow gave pretty much the last entries to be made, last minute entries. Yeah, that's been Castlevania since then. Sure, we got in the collections, but so far, no new entries, aside from mobile games and Castlevania erotic violence. But no one trying to think about Castlevania erotic violence.